And I was absolutely overwhelmed by the amount of love and acceptance that I received. I had been trained in Christian thinking, and I was wondering if I was going to be judged or sorted in some way. And instead, I was absolutely embraced and accepted, and I felt an overwhelming love that just poured over me. I had never felt that way before in my life. Um, in the in the world that we live in, we're worried about every moment of our life. We're worried about making enough money. We're worried about our where we're going to stay, where we're going to live. We're worried about our safety. We're worried about so many things. We're fearful. We're in a quandary over how we fit into things. And I was suddenly in a place where absolutely none of that existed.
I'm here today with Evan Mecham. Evan, 30 years ago, was in a terrible car accident, and he is here to share his near death experience as a result of that car accident. Evan, thank you so much for being my guest. I am appreciative of your time.
You're very welcome, Tia. Thanks for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to talk about my experience. So thank you.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. Take me back. What happened? The roads were bad, you were driving, and just an unfortunate series of events led to this car accident you had. Tell me what happened.
So I had moved from Southern California to Utah for a new job, and I was very excited about that. And I was staying at a place on one side of the mountain and working on another side of the mountain. And I was driving back and forth. I had had a very long day at the office, and it was a winter night. It was cold and it was late, and I was very tired. And I was driving quite fast. The roads were not in the best condition, and I was going over a little rise in the mountain. And as I came back down, I saw that there was a great big mule deer standing right in the middle of the road. I had very little time to make a decision, and I decided that if I hit that big deer, that deer would come through the windshield and I would be ended. And so I decided to try to dip the wheels to the left and go around it. I was successful in doing that, but when I turned the wheel back quickly, the car did not respond. I had hit a wet spot in the road, and the car just kept going into the opposite lane. I looked up, I saw a semi truck heading straight for me, and I had about enough time to say it's going to be a head-on collision. I did not feel the impact of the vehicle hitting that big old truck, but I woke up laying on the floor of my automobile. The car was torn apart, and after the fact, I was able to see the vehicle that I was driving, and it literally was cut in half from behind the front driver's wheel or tire all the way back to the rear tail light on the passenger side was gone. It was just gone. It was opened up like it was a tin can, and the truck had passed right on through it. It had hit me on the left side, and I was severely injured, and my thoracic cage, my chest was crushed, and I broke a shoulder and many of the bones. So it was a severe injury. I came back to consciousness laying on the floor of the vehicle, and I took stock of myself and tried to figure out what really happened to me. And I realized that it was very cold, that the winter air was accessing me, and I was shivering, and I began to feel the pain from the injuries. I tried to sit up. I couldn't. I couldn't move my left side at all. As I struggled, I felt a numbness in my spinal column, right in the middle of my back. And I thought, uh-oh. And as I was thinking, all of the feeling below my mid-thoracic area, it went numb. I felt nothing. And I thought to myself, oh, I'm going to be a paraplegic. And interestingly, I did not dwell on that. I simply kept calculating and looking for what was left of me, and discovered I could move my right arm, and I was able to pull myself up a little bit. As I laid there and time went on, I became colder, and I was shivering, and the pain started to make itself known. I had tremendous pain in my left chest, and my left arm was, if I moved it at all, it was excruciatingly painful. I didn't know it at the time, but I had ruptured my spleen and I was bleeding out. Time went on. I remember somebody came to the window and talked to me for a moment and said that the first responders had been called, and they were on their way, but it was going to take a while for them to get there. I was very grateful for that, and I found myself sliding ever and ever more into myself. I felt like all my extremities were being gathered up and coming into my heart area just to keep myself warm. And as time went on, I began to feel and know and understand that this was not going to end well for me. I took a deep breath and I laid back, and I let myself go a bit, and I began to feel differently. I began to distance myself from my physical body, and uh, the feelings of pain began to diminish. And I realized that I was slipping away. At that time, I had a life review. It was an amazing experience because I was able to see my entire life from the time I was a small child until I was older and married. I realized what a wonderful family I had. I realized how wonderful my parents had been. The adventures that I'd had as a young man were wonderful. And I thought about my wife and how I had fallen in love. I had 4 children at that time, and I thought about each of them and their importance to me. And I saw that my life was really good. And I had this overwhelming feeling that everything would be okay. And with great gratitude in my heart, I called out to God and said, thank you for my life. I'm grateful for that. And if this is all there is, and if I slip away now and there's nothing more, I'm very grateful that I had this opportunity. And at that time, it felt as if a warm blanket was being pulled over me. And I closed my eyes and laid back and felt myself slip from the body. I had no idea that there was anything else. Even though I had lived a Christian life, I had no firm belief or strong idea that there was anything afterwards. I was quite surprised when I began to feel again, and I found myself, I was laying in a prone position, laying down. I pushed myself up from the surface of where I was at. I could see that there were what looked like dirt and rocks, and I could see that there was a light in the distance, and the light was throwing a shadow. And I could see the shadow behind the small rocks that were around me. I pushed myself up, and I looked around. It was a night sky everywhere. It was beautiful, more stars than I've ever seen. And even though the sky was black, the stars twinkled and were gold and silver and white, and it was an incredible perspective to see from where I was standing. I looked ahead, and I saw what I determined to be a group of individuals. I don't want to say that they had bodies. They were ethereal looking. They were very bright. And they could be taken as human beings, if you will, but their bodies were ethereal and not as defined as our earthly bodies. And as I looked at them, I saw in my mind that they were calling to me. And I was immediately moving towards them. As I approached, the group opened up, and I went into the inner part, and they all came around me and embraced me. And I was absolutely overwhelmed by the amount of love and acceptance that I received. I had been trained in Christian thinking, and I was wondering if I was going to be judged or sorted in some way. And instead, I was absolutely embraced and accepted, and I felt an overwhelming love that just poured over me. I had never felt that way before in my life. In the world that we live in, we're worried about every moment of our life. We're worried about making enough money. We're worried about where we're going to stay, where we're going to live. We're worried about our safety. We're worried about so many things. We're fearful. We're in a quandary over how we fit into things. And I was suddenly in a place where absolutely none of that existed. It was as if God touched my forehead and released me from all those feelings that are so much a part of our existence on the planet. I felt loved. I felt embraced. I felt accepted. I was not being judged. I was being loved and welcomed back. I knew instantly that this was my home. And I felt warm, and I felt the presence of love all around me. And it was beautiful. I spent time with them. They never left me. They held me. They loved me. And when it was time, I saw again inside my mind that they were giving me a choice. And they were saying that you can stay or you can go back. It is your choice, and you need to make that decision. I was taken back that I was given a choice. And I realized how incredible the creation is and God is to allow us the kinds of choice and free will that we have. I found myself thinking about my children, and the thought came in to my mind that I would love to see how their life completes, how it works out. And as soon as I thought that that idea filled my mind with my children and about my children, I was shot back into my body. And I was laying again in that car on the floor. And I was freezing and shivering and cold and in agony one more time. I could see that the first responders had arrived, and they were using the jaws of life to open my car up, and they were lifting the top of my car up and literally pulling it back, so that they could reach down in and pull me out. And with great effort and tremendous pain, and I'm screaming, when they lifted me out and placed me in the ambulance. And I was back on planet Earth, and all of the pain and all of the drama and all of the fears and stress was back again. And I was stressing over the density of fitting back into my body and being back on planet Earth in the three-dimensional world. Um, Now, the ambulance was driving back down the mountain, and it was 35 minutes to get to the hospital. They took good care of me. The most amazing thing about me coming back was the fact that this little regional hospital that was located at the bottom of the mountain was by I-15, and it was by Highway 89. And and the hospital had thought, we have so many accidents that take place on these highways around us, we should put a trauma team together. And they went out and hired a team of trauma doctors from all over the country. And it happened that their very first meeting of the trauma team happened on the night of my accident. And they were all the doctors, all the best doctors that I could possibly find anywhere were at this little tiny hospital. And they took me out of the ambulance and rushed me in, and I was surrounded by an incredibly competent team of surgeons and doctors, and they all went to work on me, and they came at me from every side, and my lung had been collapsed on the left side, and my ribs, they later told me, had 300 breaks in my rib cage, and they were desperately trying to put a tube into my chest so that my lung could fill up again with air, and it was unbelievable. And one was doing one thing, another was doing another, and I didn't know which hurt worse. So it was amazing to watch this trauma team go to work. When they were finished with me, and the doctor said, okay, let's roll him into the operating room, I looked up at the doctor who was closest to me, and I asked him if there was somebody who would pray for me. And the doctor looked at me and he said, I'll pray for you. And this doctor had met me only a few minutes before, and not as a person, but as a patient and somebody who needed his help. And yet he offered to pray for me. And as he began his prayer, the entire emergency room became instantly quiet. And he said a beautiful prayer. And when he said amen and ended his prayer on my behalf, everything went back into motion and the cacophony of sounds all started again. And I was rushed in to the hospital. The next morning, my wife had flown in from California. And when she met the doctor who prayed for me, he said, "We thought you would be planning a funeral. We only gave him a 3% chance of living through the night." It was a long time spent in bed and in the hospitals. Um, I found out after being in the hospital for 2 weeks, I found out that during the accident, the truck had hit the left side of me, and it had pushed me so hard that I spun, and my right knee hit the dashboard and drove my femur through the hip joint and broke off the top of the femoral head of my femur. So they had to go in and fix my hip, and they told me that I may not ever walk again correctly, and they hadn't told me before because they didn't they didn't know if I would make it anyway, so they didn't want to depress me any more than by telling me I had something more wrong with me. Over the months, I recuperated and I came back, and um, I came back with an understanding and a knowledge that I had crossed over into another dimension. I was transformed. And I came back with a knowledge that we never die. And that this life is a gift of God. And it's up to us to understand how wonderful this opportunity is and to look at life differently, to see it in a way that we understand that we're all in this together. I felt the oneness on the other side, the oneness of everything. We are a part of a creation that is so large and so immense we can't possibly comprehend it. And we're part of that. And every person that we rub shoulders with every day is a part of that same thing. And we are made of the same stuff, and we are all a part of this wonderful existence that has been made possible by the numinous. And we need to understand that. We need to serve our fellow man. We need to serve our planet. We need to serve the callings that we're given by Spirit and do the very best that we can. So this was a transformation for me. And I'm very grateful to have had this experience, regardless of what I went through. Very, very grateful. I love a statement that is written by Michael Pollan in his book, How to Change Your Mind. I never forget this. I always think about it every day. Michael Pollan says, "Never forget what a gift and mystery it is that there is something rather than nothing." I love that.
I love that quote. And you said you were transformed. How were you transformed? Were you transformed in a physical way, a spiritual, emotional? What kind of transformations took place within you?
I think all of those things. I think you come back and you see life differently. You see the world differently. You see your fellow man differently. I was driven to serve. I was driven to find my true spiritual path. That was something that was absolutely driving me after I had this experience. Um, and it was confusing because you come back a different person. You come back thinking differently. You have a connection. You realize that we're eternal souls, um, and it's important. It's important to be awake. It's important to be in touch with spirit. It's important to look for the synchronicities in life. I had never heard of a near-death experience. I didn't understand that. I really didn't understand what had happened to me. And I didn't understand why I had such a different perspective on everything. You know, you have friends and you have ways of doing things and you have feelings of how you're living your life and what you want to do for a living and how you act when things happen to you. And all of a sudden, all of those things begin to change. You have a different attitude, you have a different perspective. Um, your old friends begin to find you not interesting anymore, right? And not interested in the same things that you used to do. And you find brand new friends that are also on a spiritual path. And it's illuminating and you help each other on your path. Um, I I stepped away from my religion and I began to study all of the religions just to see what they were really truly like. I became a Buddhist and then I became a Hindu and um, I, I I read the Quran. I was interested in any idea of spirituality. I became great friends with Rumi and loved the poetry of Rumi. Um, things that things that were not of interest to me became incredibly important. And always being driven to do more service, always being driven to learn more and understand more and improve myself. Um, I I'm currently trained in Reiki. I'm trained in hypnotherapy and NLP. I went back to school and became a transpersonal psychologist. I eventually sold my businesses and I do healing and I do my transpersonal psychology and counseling um, instead of working for a salary or working in industry. So it was life changing in many ways. It was life changing for my family. My family was used to me being a certain way, a certain kind of dad, a certain kind of husband, and all of a sudden I am a very changed individual. And that was very difficult for them. And my incredible wife um, maintains her idea of spirituality, and she was kind enough to allow me to do the same thing. So we gave each other space and we continued to love each other and raise our family. So many people who've had a near-death experience, you know, they 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 divorce and head in different directions, and we were able to work through that. I really didn't understand I'd had a near-death experience until I was in class one day, and the professor showed a movie on near-death experiences. This is back in 2003, and I was blown away. I sat in the classroom. Everyone else got up and left, and I sat in my seat absolutely stunned at what I had just learned. And professor walked by and said, Evan, why are you still sitting there? And I said, well, I finally have a name for what I have experienced. It's called near-death experience. So you continuously learn, and things are placed for you to find and expand your mind and your heart, and you continue to learn. Um, so it becomes life becomes a true adventure. It's full of synchronicities and epiphanies, and every day something new comes up.
And you said that you felt like you were welcomed back. Did you feel like you had been there before?
Oh yes, yes, yes. I was being embraced by fellow souls that I knew. I could not give them names right now, but um, I I I was welcomed and embraced. Um, Sometime later, many years later, after this experience, I was in a deep meditation, and I asked a few questions about why my experience was the way it was, and um, um, and why I hadn't been able to go someplace else and see other things, and I was told immediately that you were you were so you were so broken and so shaken up that we had to embrace you and fill you with energy and love and to make you whole again before we could send you back. So it was, again, a beautiful experience after the fact.
Do you feel like there was a reason that this happened in the first place?
I do. I do. And it becomes more clear as the years go by that there was much to still be done and much to learn. Um, our our souls, I believe, I feel that our souls have a mission. They have a roadmap. They have uh, a plan of what they wish to accomplish in an incarnation, and that my soul work was not done and not finished, and that I was given an opportunity to choose. Um, I'm really glad that I did, because I feel that I have understood my soul's mission, and I am following that every day of my life as I go forward.
How long were you in the car, do you know, after the accident?
Uh, well, I was in the car for at least, I would say 50 minutes to an hour. Yeah.
Did that match the time that you were on the other side, what that felt like?
You know, that's a really interesting question, and I can tell you that when I became conscious on the other side, there was no feeling of time at all. There was, it is outside of earthly time, and no one is looking at their watches, if you will, or their iPhones to see what time it is. It was, it could have been an eternity, right? On the other side, I have no idea. I have no idea.
When you came back, you didn't know what happened to you. What were your thoughts? Were you assuming, or how did you feel emotionally when you first came back?
I think, I think there was so much going on to try to live again, to try to heal again, that um, there was there was not a great deal of thinking about what had happened to me for maybe a good year afterwards. And then you start having the memories of what had happened to you, and that you had experienced something outside of the physical aspect of this earth. And that was a powerful feeling. That was it instills a feeling of amazement and gratitude, and it helped me to see the universe in a uh, much broader way. I saw um, how large the creation was and how amusing it was, if I can use that word, that um, I was unsure that there was anything else. And you realize that human thinking sometimes is so small. Here we are having a three-dimensional experience. We have a physical body, we have a mind that's conscious, we are sentient beings, and we look up at the night sky and see this massive, this massive universe that plays out before our eyes. And we question whether or not, some incredible power made all of this, right? And that there is a reason for it, and that we get to play in this universe that has been created for us, right? So um, those are the kinds of thoughts that I had. Very expansive, very um, open to seeing the universe as large as it is, right? As incomprehensible and ineffable as it is. So, yeah, it was those thoughts were pervasive, and those thoughts lead to other things, right? That we are not alone, and we never die, and life goes on, and it's a lovely place to live your life from, rather than always questioning and thinking so small.
So what is the purpose of all this 3D experience?
That is that is an incredible question, and I think I think that changes with every little bit of growth that we have. You see more and more and more as you continue to expand your mind, expand your heart, and see the universe as this expansive thing, as you see God as as something that is so much greater than you ever thought before. You as a small child, you may be thinking of God as an old man with a white hair and a beard, and now you see God as the creator of all things, and that God has created us all. We're all a part of God, and God is learning as well as we are and expanding as we expand. All of a sudden, the reason for all of this becomes more and more difficult to explain, right? But I think we are, as our universe is expanding, so are we. And that's God is seeing and learning and feeling along with us as we expand. So the universe is inexplicable and never ending.
All possibilities are possible then.
Indeed, indeed.
I love your description of what is the purpose of life because I really resonate with that. I think in a spiritual lifestyle where you're not bound by walls of religions or dogmas, you your beliefs do shift on a day-to-day basis sometimes, and it's kind of like the flow of water, and sometimes you get stuck in like a whirlpool, and then sometimes you're going down the river really fast, and other times it's kind of like slow and steady. So that makes a lot of sense to me. There isn't really an answer that's just across the board. It's going to shift and change with
Indeed,
you. Hmm.
indeed. That's
That's really.
exactly, that's beautiful. Really well said. I love what you just said. It's it's beautiful, and I think there's so much of for us to learn, and so much of us to understand, and so much our soul wants to grasp, and it's it's unending, and understanding is unending. And if you see God in that expansive manner, um, you begin to not say believe anymore. You begin to put that away, because belief becomes almost like a prison, right?
Mhm.
And you instead put that away and be open to everything new that comes along, as you grow and as you expand. And it is it's quite amazing way to look at the world, right? And it makes you embrace the creation. It makes you embrace your fellow citizens of the planet, right? And you stop thinking of them as something else, and someone else and different than you. We are all a part of this. Um, there's a lovely the aspect of oneness is important to me, as you can tell. Do you mind if I read something by a gentleman by the name of Thich Nhat Hanh? And he was a Buddhist monk. He passed away earlier this year, but he wrote many books, and he was an incredible man. And um, his perspective of the world, we've been talking about and touching on, but he says it in such a beautiful way, that that creation is understanding the oneness of all things. And um, I'd love to read this to you. It's Thich Nhat Hanh wrote about, in the 1980s, he was talking about um, the exodus of people from Vietnam and from Cambodia and from Southeast Asia, and everyone was trying to find a new home away from war and away from poverty and away from a political oppression. And so they paid a little bit of money, and they climbed on boats, and the boats were small and large, um, and they floated out onto the South China Sea and tried to find safety from all the peril that they were experiencing in their homeland. And Han talks about that there were pirates that would board these little boats and steal food and water and everything that these pilgrims had on their boats, and do terrible things. And he talks about a young girl that he had heard personally about, who had been raped by a river pirate, or a pirate, not, and and um, and she was so burdened by this that she threw herself off the boat and drowned herself. And he was so affected by that he went back to his home, and he wrote a poem. And the poem is brilliant, because it helps us to see that all of us on planet Earth are a part of this oneness, and that we're we're all We're all the same. And we have to embrace each other regardless of who we are. So Hans says, after a long meditation, I wrote this poem. In it, there are three people, the 12-year-old girl, the pirate, and me. Can we look at each other and recognize ourselves in each other? The title of the poem is, Please Call Me by My True Names, because I have so many names. When I hear one of these names, I have to say yes. Do not say that I'll depart tomorrow, because even today I still arrive. Look deeply. I arrive in every second. To be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with wings still fragile, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, in order to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that are alive. I am the mayfly metamorphosing on the surface of the river, and I am the bird which, when spring comes, arrives in time to eat the mayfly. I am the frog swimming happily in the clear pond, and I am also the grass snake who, approaching in silence, feeds itself on the frog. And I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones. My legs are thin as bamboo sticks, and I am the arms merchant, selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat who throws herself in the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am the pirate, my heart not capable of seeing and loving. I am the member of the Politburo with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood so my people dying slowly in the forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom in all walks of life. My pain is like a river of tears, so full it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true name, so I can hear all my cries and laughs at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names so that I can wake up and so that the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion. That's,
Profound.
yes, profound. That's the creation. And that's what this life is all about, is to see ourselves as one and to love everyone, to allow everyone their space, to allow everyone their life, to be kind. Aldous Huxley, a famous writer and philosopher of the early 20th century, I love what he said when he was asked, "What is the purpose of life? What is this all about?" And he said, "After all my reading and all my writing and all my philosophizing, it all comes down, if I had to say one phrase, to we should be a little kinder to each other."
And that's what it's all about, huh?
What it's all about.
Yeah.
Interesting movement. To feel the love that I felt on the other side, to feel that complete, impassioned, without judgment love. That's what this is all about, right? to learn that.
Yeah,
You
you're right. We would be more loving and more kind if we could realize that oneness, because we know what we do to another, we're doing to ourselves, really. It's almost a selfish way, because we're doing it to ourselves.
okay.
And I find it interesting that in the 70s, Dr. Moody coined the term near death experience. And then I feel like things have just been accelerating since then. The spiritual uh, wisdom and knowledge that are coming, experiences that people are having. Do you think that there's a shift in the world coming, or
Yes,
that's happening actually?
I, I love that you bring this up because what I think there's a shift in the human perspective, in the human heart. And it takes enough people to have their heart begin to grow and expand. And when that does, I think you make yourself open to have these synchronous experiences and to have these spiritual experiences. My near-death experience changed my life, transformed me. But what did that really do? It opened me up to the potential to have other spiritual transforming experiences. My life is filled with those experiences. My dreams are filled with messages. My friends inspire me. My path takes me to additional experiences which help me expand and grow, fulfill my soul's mission on this planet. So I think when that starts to happen, it starts to happen to others. I don't think we have any idea what our light does to people just by living a kinder life. I think, as it tells us in the Bible, right? You let your light shine. Don't put your light under a bushel, but let it shine. I read something years ago about an individual who had a terrible accident like I did, um, and he realized that from having that terrible accident, his body was broken open, and it let the light out. He realized that other people are in pain as well, right? And by letting his light out, and as it touches others, they open up and they grow and they expand. And I think that this is what you see. Certainly is what you see when we associate with each other and we talk about these things and we share our stories, we share our experiences. It has a very expansive effect on life.
Have you ever heard the term? I don't remember word for word, but something along the lines is when you wake up, the whole world wakes up with you.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you.
And
Uh,
you have been guided to lead a life of service now, even before you knew about near death experiences. Tell me about what you're doing to help others.
well, it's I work with local groups as the local group coordinator with IANDS, and that is a service of love, and I I love working with all the people who are doing such amazing work. In IANDS, as you know, there are local groups located all around the world, and we have um, 54 groups here in the United States, and I work with those groups. And I smile when I say that because each of those groups is led by an individual or a couple of people um, that are making nothing from this. They do it all for free. They donate their time. Often they donate their living room to have near-death experiencers give talks, their members. Um, we we see that happening all over the country. That there are individuals that will take on the responsibility for 30 or 40 of their own members in their local regions and towns and cities, and they act as mentors. They find speakers. They open their doors. They facilitate the meetings, and they do it all because they love what they're doing. They love to serve the Spirit, and they love each other. And they love to hear the stories that expand everybody's hearts and minds. It's all done for free. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing that you have that many people who will work so hard? I can tell you the people at IANDS, everyone's a volunteer. We have one employee. Everyone's a volunteer. They all give their time.
And IANDS is such an amazing resource, not just for people who have had near death experiences, but almost anybody can find value in it, whether you've lost a loved one or you're afraid of death or whatever it is. There's so much value there, and it's so attractive to so many. And that's how we met, you and I, through IANDS. And thank you for all the work that you do with them. It wouldn't be the same without you.
No, it's my blessing to do that. I'm grateful to have the opportunity. I'm grateful to be able to serve. And it's a blessing.
If my viewers wanted to reach out to you, Evan, how can they find you?
I have an email address that they're welcome to connect with me through. I think you have that, so you can make sure that everyone who would like can connect with me by email.
And if you had one message you'd hope the viewers to take away from this conversation we had today, what would it be?
Um, I hope that we can all try kindness first in our interactions with each other. And if we do that, we follow Huxley's philosophy, and we also follow Thich Nhat Hanh's philosophy. And we will begin to see that we're not so different. And we all have a soul, and we're all a part of the creator of all things. We need to learn to be a little kinder to each other, and things will get better.
That is such a lovely message. Just beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for being my guest. This has been just a great honor to me. Um, I'm very blessed for having you.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near-death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.